Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back. It's week 8. It's a Monday morning and it's saucer time. If the mail can be trusted, today I should be getting my circuit boards from Ralph. So that is going to lead us back into the other room to do a lot of the preliminary, well, I've done the preliminary wiring, but to actually get some of the boards wired up. So today, my goal this morning is to get these windows masked on the bottom of the saucer and get a coat of primer over top of the masks so that I can flip this bad girl over and work on the navs and strobe circuits, or the nav circuits that go to light these bulbs and the marker lights up. So I'm just going through and I'm popping window masks back over top of oh, and I'm also fixing the holes that I screwed up by trying to put screws into. So this is what we're up to. Okay, doing a little bit of work this morning on the impulse deck. Now you know the camera makes bulbs look a lot hotter than they normally are and more focused. And the truth be told, that could stand to be a little more diffused, but it's good. It'll work. I can work with it. What I need to do now is put the appropriate holes to match them up here so that I can mount, sorry, get on camera, mount this to this and put a coat of primer over it now. But now that this has been done, I can go ahead and do that, and then these will be stuck in from the inside. So yay, work is progressing. Okay, the impulse deck has been installed. It's epoxied in. It is curing. Bulbs are in and curing. I've got masks over them now so you won't see them, but you can see how much light it transmits throughout the whole part. That all has to be light blocked. So that is, I'm continuing to get things ready for the circuit board when it arrives, hopefully today. I need to flip this over and sand some of the putty that I put on it, or the spot putty that I put on it earlier this morning. Alrighty, I've just spent the last few minutes making up a couple more boxes for these 3 lights here that need to be lit. Elliot Brown, man of many talents and general font of knowledge that I rely on more than he probably knows, had a very good suggestion that I make it was a suggestion for these guys that I make a little jumper, just a box that would fit over top of this and transfer the light over top of that just by pieces, just by extending that out. And I may yet do that, and I posited that perhaps I could do that on the side as well. And I thought about it and I said, well, I know how to make boxes. I don't know how to do what he's suggesting exactly. So I decided to go ahead and make boxes, and it's more of a help because this gives me more surface at the top here to, when it comes time to attaching the top of the saucer, I'm going to need as much lip here as possible to attach to, and this just helps. This just gives me 2 more points of contact. This is where the light is, but this is strictly a point of contact underneath the saucer. So that's what I decided to make, just 2 boxes here. And what I'm going to do is just poke a 5mm warm white LED 5mm through the back of it, and that should keep the light far enough away that it will transfer out and come down those holes. So thanks, Elliot. I am going to try to take your advice to heart when it comes to these tiny portholes, because they are so much smaller, but we'll just have to wait and see how that handles itself. Let's see what else is going on. That's it. Let me get these guys glued in and get the lights wired into them. I'm going to wire them obviously together and then into the same circuit as the rest of this. Okay, you can see the light box here. I've just poked a single bulb in the back of it and put it through, and the light is designed to come out, bounce around, and go down here, but it's also obviously having a strong presence on the rim because it's just like every other LED, every other light source, it's shining straight out. So as a part of additional light blocking, I think what I might want to do is just run a strip of silver reflective tape here to light block the rim and keep the light where I want it to be. You can kind of, even though I've got them taped off, you can kind of see what's going on, that those 3 lights are lighting. There are 3 lights! So let me pause. This is the type of stuff you learn when you're test fitting. You think you got a problem licked, and then another problem shows up that you probably should have thought of. Like, yeah, every other box is designed for the light to shine straight out, so I have to redirect it that way. I don't think I want to, well, there's 2 ways to do it. No, the easiest way is just to put some tape here. Let's do that. Well, that's just much better. I like these easy solutions. Just a piece of reflective tape here, does that, light blocks it from the front. So now I need to do that over where the other box is. Okay, I have taken the template for the bridge, the placement template. It is part of the instruction package. I had to cut it off of the sheet that it was on. But I used that to line up against this is a false start, line up against the actual crosshairs of the placement for the bridge. And I don't know whether you can see, there's a little tiny divot here that's cast into the bridge, or into the top of the saucer, and I am just that far off, and I am happy as all get out with that. These were bad measurements here, don't pay any attention to that. But once I line these guys up, I'm going to trace out this area, and that'll tell me exactly, and I'm going to make it a fairly heavy line, so even through the primer coat, I will know that it needs to go there. And then I can trace out the bridge and figure out the best way that I'm going to attach that once I put the top coat of the hull color on here. Let's do that. Okay, the actual bridge is a little bit larger than the bridge template. So I used the bridge template, traced it down. I don't know how well you can see it there. There's the bridge template. Lined it up with the things. And when I put the bridge over top of it, all those lines disappear. So what I'm left with is this center line right here. That center line, which comes down to the center of, let me get it, comes down to the center of this piece. That goes there. And then I have the center line at the front going up to the round porthole at the front. So I know that center, and it's a question of going front to back to make that center line up. Well, you're given this handy little reference mark of these red lights. The red lights on either side of the bridge that are exactly, let's see, that's 360, that would be 90, 180, 270. So 90 and 270. So I kind of lined those up with the cross lines, with the crosshairs here. So if I can get that puts the bridge, top of the bridge dome, at the exact center of the saucer, which is how I believe it is supposed to be. Center of the bridge is the topmost tippy point of the saucer, and it should be at the highest point, but it should also be at the absolute center of the saucer. So if I do that and line up, I gotta kind of get on top of this, get on a chair and get over, there you go. Now I get a better vantage point here. So that center, and those two are on those lines. So if I lay this down and trace it out, it should be a contour of the line that's traced out underneath. Let's see. And what do you know? It is exactly a it is exactly a contour. This is the template line, this is the actual line, and it is exactly equidistant the whole way around. So beautiful. I know we are exactly in the center. Yay. So I'm still thinking about the best way to attach this bridge module. I know I have to drill a hole in it to run the wiring through. And my question becomes, do I put magnets on it? Do I put screws up through it? Do I just glue it down? I could slather a whole bunch of epoxy right in here and then just let the epoxy seep down from the inside and really attach itself. So I know that I want to get speaking slowly so as I remember it. I know that I want to paint this. I want to paint this before I put the bridge dome on it. And then if anything happens, I can go back in and touch it back up. But I want to get I want to get the hull color, the greenish tinted hull color on here before I attach the bridge module. But now I know where everything goes map-wise. It did turn out that I have to re-drill a little bit because the indicators, the nav lights are on center, but they're not exactly where I put the holes in them in the armature, so I have to re-drill the spots on the armature. Well, good news everybody, it's mail call day, and the main computer, the library computer, or the warp core, whichever way you want to phrase it, my power has arrived. This is the nav board that'll go up in the saucer. This is the important remote control board that will allow me to shut everything off and turn everything on. So real excited to get started on that. So while the saucer is drying in the other room, I got a coat of primer on it, and I don't want to touch it. I can start doing my preliminary wiring on this board, and that means I can clean up and finally finish the area around here, around the saucer dish, or around the main sensor dish, and I can clean these wires up, and yeah, that's gonna be fun. After doing the big, arm wavy, heavy holding up things work, I can get into some little niddly wiring work, and that will be fun. Okay, kids, it's brain install day, or warp core installation day, or however you want to phrase it. But the first thing I need to do is to fix something that I inadvertently broke. Well, not broke. That wasn't the right description. But I was pulling some wires to strip the end of them, and I inadvertently yanked the wire, or the USB, I get the USB joint loose from the plug that is way the back in there. So I need to devise something to plug this back in. So I'm going to spend the first part of my day fixing something that I should not have needed to fix. But then we're going to get on to getting the remote hooked up to all of these different circuits, which means hopefully I can get the deflector dish installed, at least the cowling installed today. So let me go ponder this for a bit and struggle and swear and curse, and you don't need to see all that on camera, and then we'll get back to where we started the day. Okay, I've remade that connection. All it took was a homemade device here and a pair of forceps, so we're back on track now. What I've got is trying to start bundling up the wires. These two are the engine lights. I'm sorry, not the engine lights at all. These two are the general window lights. It's the general window lights. That's all of the window lights. It's also the strobes and the spine lights back there. That's all of that, and it's connected to the wire that comes up to here, which provides the general window lighting for the saucer. So all of these are joined together. I need to put the commons together and then attach them to one of the outputs on this board. So I'm going to be following pretty much the same protocol for the rest of these. These are the Bassard lights. These are the inboard blue lights. It'll all make sense after a while. This is the other string that comes up out of the neck, and one of them, or one of these sets, and I believe it is the red and black set, goes to power the nav board, which will sit up in the saucer, and the other is a return for the strobes that will strobe here. So let's just continue to go on what we're doing. Okay, it's been a fairly aggravating morning of chasing down shorts and fixing things and, you know, making sure my wiring is right on, and how come when I add one more wire to it, it shorts out, that kind of stuff. And it's, like I said, it's frustrating, and it's not the fiddly type of wiring I like to do. But I've got most of it in. I've got everything but that tail light, the light that is on the back of that nacelle. I cannot find out why it's not. I can't find out why it's not lighting. I have chased the wiring down. I've got to spin the ship around so that I can get to that Bussard collector and pull it off and check the wiring at the head of that. But if that's the last thing I need to do, then this will be ready to close up, and I can work on getting the deflector dish in place. Well, I feel justifiably proud of myself. For the life of me, could not figure out what was going on with these tiny strobes. The tiny strobes here and here and there upon there. And then I remembered how selfish and unruly red LEDs can be as far as needing special needs for resisting and whatnot. So I put a tiny resistor in line for the red light going to here, and everybody played nice, because what was happening is I could get 3 of them to work, but as soon as I added the red LED, it sucked all the power out of the room and wouldn't let the other 3 work, but would let the red LED work. So it was one or the other, and I wasn't happy with that solution. So I remembered teachings, early teachings, all through the fog of my memory, came back saying that red LEDs are special needs LEDs, and they don't like playing well with others and need their own resistors. So I fished through the resistor pile and pulled that out, which is one of the tiny ones from the SM LEDs that I used in a similar situation, so I figured they would be rated similarly. And now that I have all 4 of these working like a tremendous thing, I am going to go celebrate by getting some lunch, because I've got this problem licked. I want to stick the Bussard head back in there, clean these wires up, and shove everything back in, and then go take a break. Okay, I lied. I didn't take a break. It's 3 o'clock now, and I've been working on this thing steady since early morning. But here's where we are. I'm going to bring up these circuits one by one, and I'm using the remote from Ralph. Step 1, that's your window lighting. Step 2 turns on the nav board, which will go up into the saucer. So that's connected, but the nav board isn't connected yet. Step 2, 1 click is the nacelle lights. 2 clicks is the motors, or are the motors. Step 3, 2 clicks is the blue light inboards. And the last one is the mysterious strobes on the top of the nacelles that you may not be able to see with the lights on. Let's kill all the rest of these. There you go. It's those strobes there, the tiny wee strobes. I actually ended up putting those on a separate circuit board that I happened to have, that I really didn't know what it was, except for I knew it was a Tenna Controls board, so I looked it up online and found out how to wire it. But that gave me, the problem I was having is I was running the strobes on the nacelles there off of the main nav board, and I couldn't find a way to isolate just that part of the nav board so that I could run it on a separate switch, and that was causing me all kinds of headache. So glad to have figured that out. So 2 clicks off turns off the motors. 1 more click off turns off the lights. 2 clicks turns off the inboard blue lights. 1 click there turns off the window lights. And the last thing you see are the strobes, and 1 click off of that turns off the strobes. So now I am ready. Now I am ready to shove all of this back in. You I always said, oh, there's so much room. I've got so much room to work on, but you'd be surprised how quickly that disappears. Let me turn this on so that you can see. But yes, it looks like you still have all the room in the world, but it still comes down to a rat's nest like this. So I need to insulate this one last bit of wire. Yes, those can come out now. I can insulate this one last bit of wire, shove everything back in, and start putting in place the deflector dish. Yay, brother. Heading out to Eden. Wait, where did the ship go? I have something to show you. Okay, now this is an important step for many reasons. One, it's the first time the ship has been on the actual post with power running to the post, and I got the polarity right, and I'm happy. Of course, there's only 50-50 chance I could have gotten it wrong, but that's one orange dome and one dome that has not been replaced yet. But let me shut everything off. You'll notice the engine sound. The engines pick up a bit when, or the motors pick up a bit when the rest of the power is off. You can tell how much power is being drained everywhere else. That's putting a strain on the poor transformer. But we've got, it's not glued in, obviously. I just put it in place to show. But we've got that in place. All those wires are pushed behind here. I was more or less testing to see how sensitive the pickup on the remote was, so that I would know whether or not I could, or whether I needed to move the board, or whether I had to use the antenna on the board, but on the remote. But Ralph's remotes are pretty darn good. So we'll go back to one snap putting the lights on, and again, 2 snaps turns on the nav board. For the big saucer that's not here yet, let's see, 2 of those puts on the blue lights. I guess here, let me do this. If you believe this is your starship and you've got this much working, and then you want to take it into the 21st century, ironically, you could say, okay, well, we're going to add inboard blue lights. Inboard blue lights, and a second set of strobes on the back of the nacelles, just like that. Those green one, that green one right there is mighty powerful. I had to follow the instructions that Ralph gave, which is said if the buttons start acting up, you have to unplug it and plug it back in. So there is. We'll take it from this view. There are the windows. So that's your 60s Enterprise. Now, there's your blue lights and your additional strobes. So if you want to take it back, you knock off the additional strobes, you knock off the blue lights, and there's your 60s Enterprise. People will be happy to know the spine lights are still lit. The dome lights there. Lots of painting to be done yet because I still have to do all of this work, but now I know that I can go ahead and put the end caps on the nacelles, because I was worried about whether or not these strobes, until I was happy with making sure those worked, I didn't want to put the end caps on, so I can do that now. And I think most of the time I'll leave the motors off, even if I choose to light the Bassards, I'll leave the motors off. But you can see the cabin light there on above the saucer, or I'm sorry, above the shuttle bay deck. This sits okay. Now it's going to be more balanced once the saucer goes on, but it sits okay on that peg. I was afraid it was going to be too weighty for it, so I am going to leave this on here for a little bit. It'll actually clear up my workspace so that I can do stuff on the desk in the studio, and I guess the next thing to do is to put the nav board into the saucer. Okay, it's been a lighting extravaganza today, but this is where we're going to stop. This is the nav lights in the saucer, obviously, and we've got the ones you don't see are the white ones on the bottom. Let's see if I do this. If you can tell, yeah, you can see the white ones on the bottom. But between that and neatening up the wires in here, we are pretty well on the way. We're almost ready to, I think we're almost ready to paint the bottom of this. Have to check this in the morning against that, but almost ready. Well, good morning, folks. It's Wednesday. Got a lot done yesterday in retrospect. I didn't feel like it at the time, but getting all that wiring done, even though it took all day, it was a major step. So what I did last night before laid my weary head down was to run the wiring for the navs in the saucer, and then the last thing I did was tape it all together and try to make the top meet the bottom, which in some cases is going to be a struggle. I'm not going to kid you. It's going to be a struggle, doubled up by the fact that I'm going to have to kind of do it in place. I have to mount the bottom of the saucer and all of that before I could put the top on, and that means working on its stand, which is going to be tough. I mean, I'm going to have to take it off and put it in the cradle, but working on it in place is what I'm saying is going to be tough. So here it is. I'm kind of hoping, just it'll get muscle memory. I don't know. That it will remember how it's supposed to go back together, and things will be good. Now, this morning, what I'd like to do, sand this up, take the tape off it, obviously. Sand it up, get one last coat of primer on it, and then maybe we're ready for the hull color. I want to make sure that the top and bottom obviously are ready for paint at the same time, because I only want to mix that up once, and then hopefully whatever leftover I have I can use on the touch-ups. But there's going to be a lot of work getting this seam settled. I know that is. I mean, you might as well settle in and just consign yourself to that fact. So I think what I need to do is take this tape off, flip it over. I'll flip it over. Oops, take this off. I've got this taped off because I don't ever need to put paint there. But here you can see that last night I started cutting in the holes here so that I've got a gripper. I've got some way to hold this. That's obviously covered by the bridge module. And I'm going to put tape down over here that will preserve some of my pencil marks. Obviously, this will be covered with paint, and this will be covered with paint, but if I can keep these witness marks alive, then I should be able to redraw in what I need for any markings that I need to align, or any... I'm really not interested in putting too many grid lines on this, if any. So if I do, they'll be light and they'll be in pencil. But what I want to do this morning is take the tape off of this, give the top one last sanding, get it ready for paint, and I need to position the red and green lights on the armature so that they're ready to go, and then I can pop this down over top of everything when it comes time to putting it all back. This is a concession that I'm willing to live with. This big seam here, I can fill that in with putty. I am not concerned about that. Getting everything else to match is going to be the important part of it. I mean, something had to give. It's not lining up all the way around everywhere. So given the fact that that's going to cover some of it, I can put a little putty in there and live with the results. That's going to actually look like that. So a little bit of putty there does not scare me. And then this obviously goes down through the hole. The power goes down through there, and then that sits on top. Now I haven't decided exactly how this is going to be finally fixed. It's probably going to be a measure of clear epoxy. I need to increase the size of these holes so that I can fish the wire up through it when I need it. So let's just take the tape off of this thing. Okay, back from its triumphant display room tour. We are back on the workbench for the secondary hull, and now that all of this has been taken care of, I can put this ring in place and glue it down or epoxy it down. I could probably still, hopefully still be able to get in behind there to adjust wiring, but this was just easier without that part on there. Okay, now that the epoxy has set on this, I just took the opportunity to get the epoxy sculpt out and to clean up this joint, but also to pack in some epoxy sculpt here where that crack was and get that all sculpted in nice. And at least it's to the point now that once it sets up and I sand it, if I have to use any spot putty on it, it won't be a big gap to fill. It was a huge gap to start with, but you shove some epoxy sculpt in there and it takes care of it like nobody's business. Good morning, folks. It's Thursday and I got a number of things I want to do today. So chiefly of which is to paint the saucer. So I'm going to try to duplicate the circumstances of the last time, get everything set up exactly the same because it went so well the first time. But let me, before we do that, take a minute to revel in the beauty of this seam that is nigh on invisible now. But and that's just one of the things I need to touch up. Hopefully I'll have paint left over that I can put in the small brush and do tiny touch-ups today on the secondary hull here. Now last night I did a couple of rounds of, touching little spots and putting putty over them, sanding them down and puttying and sanding. And I've got both the top, and you'll notice I got much bigger holes here cut out. Both the top and the bottom of the saucer smoothed down and ready to paint this morning. So give me a little bit of time to set up the stage the carport, as it were. I need to do a bunch of stuff to get ready to paint, but I had such success last time that I wanted to do it the same time of day, same everything. So let me get to it. Okay, I've got everything cleaned up now, but here we can see the fruits of the labor of the morning, and that is getting a good coating. And this is not, well, it's dry enough to barely touch, but I'm going to let it sit out here for a little bit longer. This is looking pretty good. Now I know that the gloss of it is going to accentuate every little ripple and unevenness that hopefully when I go to put the flat coating on will take care of, because I do notice some stuff that's unfortunately in the fiberglass. Whether you can see across there or not, but see all of that? That's in the fiberglass, and I don't like it. And it would take a hellacious amount of work to get rid of it. And ultimately, for as much of it as you would see, I'm hoping that it won't be an issue, but I don't like it. But like I say, it's in the fiberglassing, and I'm hoping the flat coat will take care of it. So let this dry for a little bit longer, and I'll continue putting things away. And actually, I will be able to do some grass cutting today, since this is all that's going to happen on the model is this. Let this dry, let it cure for another 20 minutes or so, and then move it in the house. Okay, while I had some of that tiny bit of paint left over, I was able to touch up some areas in here using the small brush and this that I blended in yesterday, and more importantly, getting this this part well, let me get it away from the window so you can see it. Getting this part painted without the dome. I got that mask, but now that's ready to go up underneath the saucer when the time comes. And you can see I've got this back in place today. I gotta do something to pull that back up square. I think it's just a question of twisting this ever so much to make it fit. But I think the next thing I can do, this has to dry, so I can't touch that yet, but I might be able to put the caps on today. Alrighty, now it's getting into mid to late afternoon and on Thursday, and I've just gone through and taken off the window masks because the paint's dry enough to do that, and no sense leaving the masks on any longer than you really need to. Just got a stray one here to peel off, and we'll let this cure all night and then come back to it tomorrow. You can see where I've taped off areas that I didn't really even need to bother having tape on or paint on them, just so that I don't have to worry about throwing off my angles with a bunch of extra paint. And I did that on the top here as well. You obviously just in place, but you can see the big holes for the lights. And this is where we're gonna let it sit for the rest of the evening. Yes, this looks like a warped taco. Get over it. I know I will. Welcome back. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. Okay, let's take a tour of the various electrical circuits in the saucer. First up is the this is the nav board that gives me the red and green plus the white lower navigational lights, and this is off of Ralph's 350 scale board, the board that he sells for the 350 scale Enterprise. And the crying shame of it all is I only need just these two, just this one circuit. There is plenty left on this board that it can do that I don't need, and that includes the impulse deck, because I want to put that on a separate switch, and I can't break out, or at least I don't know how. Ralph, if you can, and I am misstating your product, I'm sorry, but my feeble knowledge does not know how. I can't break certain functions out of this board and turn them off individually using your remote. So what I'm doing is only using the nav portions of this board, and I'll just snip these wires off that go to the rest of the ship. Like the impulse deck will have its own circuit because I want to be able to turn it off and on, being that the actual filming model never had these lit. It's sort of like the blue inboards on the back of the nacelles. I want to be able to single that out and turn it off and on. And the strobe that goes down to the shuttle bay, those two strobes on the outside by the side of the shuttle bay, I could use one of these wires to do that, but I'm not gonna, because I've got a whole dedicated circuit board down there, and it's 1.5 miles away from this, and I don't want to string a wire back to it. So I'm only using this for the navs. Let's look at the next circuit up. And there's the second circuit. That is the impulse deck. And yes, that is awfully sourcey. It's going to be no real way around it. This is a solid piece. I can't really get any fiber fill in to diffuse that. I suppose I could have built some elaborate box back here and done the lighting, but frankly I didn't want to. So call me lazy. What I'm going to do is put some of that grid metal over top of the front of this, and hopefully that's going to knock down the obviousness of the lights, but frankly I really don't have a problem with it. So there. And that brings us to the last circuit. And okay, here is the last of the 3 circuits that are up here, and that is the window lights, and the bridge module light, and the planetary sensor, which you can't see because it's kind of buried in there. But that is the third of the three systems that are going on here. And now I just need to neaten up all these wires. Already I've got these bits of gray painted, and now I just need to strip the painter's tape off of them. Cleaning up windows as I go. And now I think the thing to get ready for is, actually no, there is a, look at that. There is a light gray that, oh, those look so pretty. There's a light gray box right here, and then there's light gray inside of these shapes. So I need to spray that light gray on. And then once that's done, I can start thinking about the decals. Now the decals are, well, not decals per se, but they're vinyl, and that would be the red stripes. Oop, there you go. The red arc stripes that go back in here, and I need to map those out. And then there are the registry numbers and letters, the NCC 1701s that go. That's nice and clean. That go. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Kind of pull tape off at the same time. That go here and here, and I can get those laid on. But I think because it has the most potential to be mistaken and have to be redone, I think what I want to do is paint the light gray first, and then go in and try to do these tan rings, for lack of a better term. The tan rings, get those painted in, because I might need to, like, and with this being nice and glossy paint, I can kind of wipe off wherever there's an issue. So I want to get those taken care of. But the next thing I need to do it right away is the light gray inside of the triangles and this guy right here. Alrighty, I've got the masks removed from all the gray shapes. This is distracting, so I'll go ahead and put this back over top so you don't see that ugly mark. I'm going to do these guys now, these tan or buff colored stripes. They're not stripes so much as that they're infills for these indents here. And I thought of hand painting them and then wiping off around the excess, and then I looked back at and saw the unadulterated master of the practice, Bill George, when he was painting the restoration of the actual Enterprise at Smithsonian. He had line tape and just a scad of post-it notes that he was using to mask, and if it's masking is not too good for him, it's not too good for me. So I'm going to, I should have said undisputed, not unadulterated. That's the wrong use. Undisputed master of paint, Bill George. And if you dispute it, I will fight you. So let's get these guys masked off. I cut a series of circular masks in vinyl. We're going to see how successful those are. Well, this certainly looks like fun, doesn't it? Now I got to find the right color of brown to paint those stripes. I'm thinking buff, but then again, I want it to be a little bit more noticeable than that. So let me go check some references and mix up something. Okay, it looks like Desert Yellow was the winner. It has a nice tannish look to it. And now I'm glad I did all that masking, because it allowed me to just go a little bit wide with the airbrush and not have to be so meticulous about it. So we're going to let this dry, because that's a lot of masking to pull off, and I don't want to yank up any paint underneath it if I can get away with it. I think what I can do is, obviously, I can do the outer perimeter that I don't need to have taped up anymore. But I think I'm going to go sit on the back porch with a tasty beverage and enjoy a little bit of downtime looking at the birds while this dries. We'll see how much more of it I can get done today. I would still like to get the red stripes and the numbers put on, but we will see what we will see. There you go. I do the inside see how, because I don't need these guys. I don't want to disturb the vinyl masks that are on there, but I can take these off, certainly. There we go. There. Now all that's left is the vinyl, and I can let that sit. Yeah, not too bad. Now, you know, I dare say that up to maybe a couple of years ago, not too many people even knew that there were painted rings here. They were happy to accept that that was a little bit of space dust, but thanks to the good work of the people at the Smithsonian, we know that that was in fact painted. So there you go. A little uneven in a couple of spots, but I can live with it. So the next thing to do is, there's one yellow shape here that needs to be painted. And that's a brighter, that's actually a chrome yellow. That's not the desert yellow, so I can do that. And then what's remaining is the registries and the red semicircles, or the red arcs that go back here. Mapping those out is going to be a bit of a head scratcher, so I will probably do the easy stuff first. Okay, I'm getting ready to put down the numbers, registries on the bottom of the saucer, and I'm checking the instructions. They give me no bit of clarity here, but here they say that the registry number is 0.4575 from the navigation light. Well, I got to tell you, I'm only carrying this to a couple decimal points, so I'm going to go 0.46 and see how it goes. Okay, I've got one last task for today, and that is to get these red arc stripes on, pinstripes on. And unfortunately, unlike decals, you cannot move these things around and kind of fish them into position. And the lack of all this is glued on now, and the lack of grid lines is making this job even more difficult. So I know that as a general reference, these are in the same area as this bank of windows. I know that they are farther in than these 3 window sets. I know that they are concentric, so if I measure a distance out from one of these rings or the other, and then just drew a line, then that should give me my correct arc. The only problem is making them symmetrical, making one side match the other. So I'm just going to make myself happy with the positioning of one of these and then mirror those dimensions to the other side. And I can't think of any other better way of doing it than that. If I make a gauge that is here, that will allow me to draw a line that is the same distance around here. Ooh, I think I might have the tool for that. Okay, I've got a pencil line drawn, and I did that by taking this band compass or rod compass and scribing an equidistant line between this and the outside edge. I used the same measurement, so I just went like that to give me my arc line. And knowing that it has to sit above this bank of windows, I'm imagining it something like that. So what I need to do is cut this inner portion out, and that will give me something for the vinyl to butt up against. And since this window bank and this window bank are mirrors of each other, I can get a starting point that I like, say this window here, and match it both ways, and that will help me determine my symmetry right left. Well, 3 cheers and a tiger for me. Yes, those went down quite nicely, I think. Most importantly, they are equidistant here and here, equidistant there and there. So there. This guy's nailed down finally. And that's going to bring work this week to a close. And that's going to bring week 8 to a close. 8th week on this It's getting up there. You know how antsy I get when I spend too much time on a ship. So we're 8 weeks in and closing down fast, I gotta tell you. Next week won't be working on it at all because I gotta get ready for the new Gannets. And if any of you go, stop by. I'm giving a little lecture on Thursday, and if not, I'll probably be in the dealer room or, you know, the bar. So stop by, say hi. I'll take the camera with me. You know I'm going to do that. I can't live without documenting everything I do. But that's going to bring week 8 to a close on the Enterprise. Got a lot done. Got the lighting worked out. Got the warp core put in. The library computer, whatever you want to call it. The main brain is in. So now it's a question of the big stuff, really. Next time I work on this, I can't really do anything more until I attach. I'm doing it now because it's sitting right here. It's staring at me. I think you can hear me, Ray. The neck is right here. So the next thing I need to do is attach the bottom of that saucer to the neck, and then the top of the saucer. And fighting that seam is going to be the last big battle. Is fighting that seam around the edge of the top of the saucer. Not looking forward to that. And then after that, it's all touch up, flat coat, and then the weathering starts. So I'm thinking maybe 3 more weeks. I don't know. I'm guessing 3 more working weeks, not 3 weeks plus the next week that I won't be on it. So we'll see. And then we'll know. Not having seen, won't be able to know. So until then, be good to each other, and we'll see you here next time.